In this special episode of the Butt Chronicles, we take a look at the creation of Beavis and ButtHead.
Welcome to Industrial Industries World Radio's The Butt Chronicles.
You said welcome.
Oh God.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this very special episode of the Butt Chronicles, your audio guide to everything Beavis and ButtHead. I'm your host, DJ Glowing Ice, and before we get into episode 1, covering the first episode of Beavis and ButtHead, Frog Baseball, I figured we'd take a look at the creation of Beavis and ButtHead and how they came to be so we could set everything up before we start rolling with anything else. So that's what this episode's all about. So you guys have a very great idea of how Beavis and ButtHead were born and came to be. So that's what we're looking at today. The creation of Beavis and ButtHead. Thank you guys for listening. This is the Butt Chronicles. Now let's get into this. Beavis and ButtHead was created by Mike Judge. A basic rundown up until the point of him creating Beavis and ButtHead goes like this. Mike Judge was born on October 17th, 1962, to Margaret Judge, a librarian, and William Judge, an archaeologist. Mike was born in Ecuador due to his father's work at a nonprofit organization. His parents had 3 kids, and Mike was the middle child. Mike was raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and attended St. Pius X's high school. Through his time growing up, he worked at a chicken farm and learned to play bass. In 1985, he graduated the University of California, San Diego with a Bachelor of Science in Physics. The next couple years, Mike worked at a few engineering jobs. Throughout this work, though, he was feeling really bored and felt like there had to be more to life. His last job in engineering was in 1987 in Silicon Valley, working for Parallax Graphics, a software company. The culture and the working environment inside of this place made him never want to show up for work, and after 3 months, he quit. This was 1988, and Mike Judge decided to take on a career of being a touring musician. He played bass for the blues band Anson Funderburgh and the Rockets. He toured with the band for around 2 years, and wound up recording bass on their album, Rack 'Em Up. In 1989, Mike was still a musician, and he was attending graduate classes in Dallas, Texas. Around this time, he attended an animation festival, and in the lobby of the theater of this festival, he saw some animation cells that were made by someone in his hometown. This flicked on a light bulb in his head and made him realize that maybe he could take a crack at it too. After reading some books on animation and buying a $200 camera, Mike got to work. In 1991, after making a few animated shorts, like Office Space and Inbred Jed, he saw that there was an upcoming Spike and Mike Sick and Twisted Animation Festival happening. This was an animation festival that would travel across the United States, showing animated films in theaters late at night for adult audiences. Spike and Mike had ran the Inbred Jed short in an earlier festival, so Judge had some connections with Spike and Mike already. This time, Mike wanted to go all out. He really wanted to buckle down and animate something for the festival that would push him to possibly have a career in animation. Looking through his sketchbook, he came across the drawings of Beavis and ButtHead that he drew a while back. With these drawings in mind, he decided to take a walk. As Mike took this walk, it was only about 2 to 3 minutes for him to come up with the idea of Frog Baseball, the first Beavis and ButtHead episode, and also the names of the characters. He imagined these characters as out-of-control teenagers that were a combination of a lot of kids he grew up around. He thought of how teenage boys, around 14 years old, always wanted to act tough and wear band t-shirts, but they still had braces, kind of dorky and stupid to a lot of things in the world. Now, let's take a look at how Beavis and ButtHead individually were created. Mike Judge started drawing ButtHead based on a guy he went to high school with. As he kept drawing, Butthead started morphing into this other kid that Judge knew. This other kid was someone that Judge remembered who was older than him. He had a prominent stiff upper lip, and it showed off his gums. Part of Butthead's personality also came from this kid. Judge was thinking back when he was in the 5th grade, and he had a clubhouse in a vacant lot with some of his friends. This older kid that Butthead was based off of told young Judge he saw the clubhouse and that he was going to tear it down. The next day, the clubhouse was torn down. A few days after that, the older kid Butthead was based off of came up to Judge and said to him, "Yeah, that clubhouse you got? We tore it down." So that's Butthead. Now let's get to Beavis. Beavis, in one instance, with the laugh and biting his bottom lip, was from a kid that Mike was in calculus class with. The kid was really smart and sat in the front of the class. Halfway through the year, they had a new teacher come in who was an ex-Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Upon knowing this, the kid was so excited that he'd make this nervous laugh at anything this new teacher would say. That laugh, and the tightly wound up energy this kid had, made up parts of who Beavis would be. And last but not least, how did Beavis and Butthead get their names? Well, the name Butthead came from 2 people. When Mike was in college, this kid who lived next door to him called himself the Iron Butt. This kid claimed that no matter how hard you could kick him in the butt, it wouldn't hurt him. There'd be lines of kids kicking him in the butt, and every single time he got kicked, he'd turn around and say, "See, it doesn't hurt." This kid, going by the Iron Butt, also had a friend that Mike Judge wound up calling Butthead, based on his friend being called the Iron Butt. Mike put the name Butthead down for this character, but he intended to name it something different later on. But as he looked at this tentative name Butthead for this character, it made him laugh, so he just decided to keep it. Beavis's name came from a kid Mike knew who lived a few blocks away from him. This kid's name was Bobby Beavis. He wasn't like the character Beavis at all. Bobby Beavis was actually really athletic, and Mike would overhear kids saying, "Beavis is cool." With that name stuck in his head, he wound up naming the character Beavis simply because he liked the name. So as Mike took this walk, and in these 2 to 3 minutes of him thinking about these characters, the idea of them playing frog baseball came to him from remembering a sick game he had heard kids talking about. And that's when Mike Judge started working on the very first episode of Beavis and Butthead, called Frog Baseball. And that is it for this special episode of the Butt Chronicles, going over the creation of Beavis and Butthead. Next episode, we are going over episode 1, which is Frog Baseball. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening. I am your host, DJ Glowing Ice, and this is the Butt Chronicles, your audio guide for everything Beavis and Butthead. See you guys next time.